Are you thinking about moving to the South Shore? Do you have kids that you've been considering sending to private school? I've made videos talking about Cohasset, Hingham, Milton, and the list goes on and on. In each of these videos, I mention different school options, both public and private. My family has experienced both the public school system and the private school system, so I have a great perspective on each of them. And in this video, I want to get a little bit deeper in what you may need to know if you're thinking about sending your kids to a private school on the South Shore of Boston. I hope you enjoy. Hi, I'm Katie Norton, and I'm a realtor in Massachusetts. And this channel is all about helping you know a little bit about what it's like to live on the South Shore of Boston. So subscribe if you haven't, and if you're thinking about making a move to the South Shore area, please give me a call. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So let's just back up a little bit and talk about a little bit about the difference between public and private school. I grew up here on the South Shore my whole life, and it's actually a little bit of a tricky subject for me. I actually went through the public system in Stoughton and graduated from Stoughton High School in 1990. My husband, on the other hand, went to private school at Boston College High School, as did many of his other family members. So as you can imagine, this was a big discussion in our household. We ultimately decided that it made the most sense for our kids to follow in his footsteps and become alumni of the same school that he went to. But don't get me wrong, the public schools on the South Shore of Boston are absolutely amazing. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you know I talk a lot about over the past 25 years how the different schools have been either rebuilt or built from scratch or modernized. So I say this all the time. The tax dollars on the towns in the South Shore of Boston are really going to the public schools and making a big difference. So having said that, I sent my kids all to public elementary schools. So they basically went to public schools in 3 different towns, grades kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. So we have a lot of experience in the different public schools on the South Shore. It wasn't until they started 7th grade that they moved up to the Boston College High School middle school. And that's where our private school experience began. So even though Massachusetts, which actually has the 5th best education system in the country, private school can be a preferred option for many families. And there are a number of reasons why this may be the case. The first is simple, family tradition, just like our family. So when we decided to send my boys to BC High, it was because my husband and his brothers all went to BC High, my father-in-law went to BC High, and my husband's grandfather went to BC High. So for us, it was just a natural family tradition to keep that going. Other families may choose a different private school that might cater to the needs of a specific child. So if you have a student in your family who might lean towards the theater or the arts, you may choose one specific private school based on that need and what that school is doing at the time. For example, Milton Academy right now has a world-renowned theater program. You may have a student who's really into sports, and in that case, you might pick a private school based on that need for that student. In our case, it really worked out because BC High had different options for all the different needs of our kids. Our oldest son actually was on an IEP when we lived in Cohasset. And although BC High does not have a specific IEP, they really cater to each student's needs and what that child needs. So in our oldest son's case, sports were his most important thing. It meant the world to him. He would show up at school, he would get through his classes, but at the end of the day, what really mattered to him was getting out onto that football field or that rugby field or that track and field. He just did every single sport. For us, we realized that he was a full-rounded student because he had both, did okay in the classroom, but for him, sports was most important. Our second son, on the other hand, was an absolute academic. All he cared about was getting into the classroom and taking the most advanced classes he could possibly take, and then surrounding himself with like-minded students. So for him, his day was mostly about academics, or maybe joining the business club or doing a few other things. Our middle son is a complete combination of the two. He loves school, he loves his friends, he loves being in school all day, but he's just as happy to get out and row crew in the afternoons. We just finished up his crew season, and that was a brand new sport for us. Most of the schools I'm going to talk about have this great variety. There's no one school that caters to one thing. So as I talk about the different schools, just remember that for each student, you want to find what the right fit it is for them. And one other thing I'll say about my boys, BC High is a same-sex education. And for us, that was important. They were really able to hone in on that brotherhood. They say a man for others. And so we loved that about BC High. But going back to reasons why a private school might be your preference is access to different communities. Access to different communities can be defined in different ways. The first one is just in your day-to-day life. You would have access to different families and a different community outside of your town. So if you're moving here from out of town and you do send your kids to the public high school in the town that you've moved to, chances are you're going to be exposed to the families and the people that your kids are hanging out with in what their sports or their theater or whatever they're doing. So the cool thing about going to one of these private schools is you would get to know people from all over the different towns, especially on the South Shore. So for example, I just had a friend move up here from Florida, and she moved to Hingham specifically for her husband's job in Boston. She has 3 sons. And when she started looking at schools, one of the places she was looking at is where my sons go to school. One of the draws for her was that she was going to be moving into this great community in Hingham, but then she would also have exposure to all the other communities in Boston. And that was going to be helpful for a lot of different reasons. The other type of access to communities would be the alumni community. A lot of these private schools that I'll be talking about in this video are actually the alma mater of a lot of notable leaders. So whether it's the alumni or just the different classmates, there'll be a lot of different families that your student will go to school with. Now, as we start talking about these different schools, I'd like to break them up into different categories. The first of the 2 major categories in private school is going to be the Catholic same-sex schools. So the thing you have to realize about these schools is they are Catholic by tradition, but they are fully modernized schools. They accept students from any religious denomination. And these schools teach a broad set of life skills that is not just about religion. A lot of these schools follow the Jesuit education, and the Jesuit education is really based on how the whole person should be developed. So most of their teachings go to teaching what the person should be for the rest of their life and what the values they should develop. So the other thing about all of these Catholic schools, whether it's boys or girls, is that they have incredible sports programs and the traditions run deep. So if you go to a school and you have a rival in school, guess what? You'll be coming back every year to go to one of those rival games, whether it's football, field hockey, basketball, tennis, whatever it is, those traditions all run really deep. So some examples of the all-boys school that for me are probably the most directly related to families on the South Shore are going to be Boston College High School, which is located in Dorchester, Xaverian Brothers High School, which is located in Westwood, and Catholic Memorial High School, which is located in West Roxbury. There is one thing that I loved about the all-boys school and the same-sex education. For me, it was right around that 7th grade and 8th grade time when the boys started. There was a lot of extra energy. There was a lot of immaturity. There was a lot of messiness. The thing about an all-boys school for middle school was that, one, they were required to wear a uniform, and that included a belt, socks, and sneakers. So there was no more arguing about what they were going to wear to school on any given day. So the middle of January in New England, a lot of kids like to wear shorts to school. In our case, that just wasn't allowed. So for me, it took those mornings from arguments to just, these are the facts, let's just get to school and focus on school. And I remember this one time when there was an orientation meeting for 7th grade for the boys, and one of the teachers said that they like to start off the class by letting all the boys stand up and do like jumping jacks or push-ups or something. That might seem crazy, but to me, it was his way of getting their energy level up, but also releasing the energy that they needed to release. I just think that's really important at that age group to be surrounded by people who are similar in maturity level that you are. Again, just like the all-boys schools, we have a couple all-girls schools that come to mind when I think about families that live in Boston or on the South Shore. And those 2 schools are Notre Dame Academy in Hingham and Fontpont right here in Milton. Both are incredibly well academic. They're incredible sports teams, and their theater programs are some of the best in the state. We love to go to some of their plays and some of the other things that they do. For the all-girls schools, they actually wear uniforms throughout their entire career. Again, I don't have daughters, but I go back to this takes away any of the messiness between girls, whether they're competing against each other or they're judging each other's clothes. It takes it all away. They're all on a level playing field, whether it's in the classroom or out on the sports field. So the other school that's Catholic in tradition is Archbishop Williams High School in Braintree, and that's actually a co-education high school. So if you do still want that traditional Catholic education, but you want, maybe you have siblings, twin siblings, or brothers and sisters, and you just want to focus everyone in one school, that would be your choice. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the non-Catholic private high schools that are still located in proximity to all the different towns on the South Shore. The first two that come to mind for me are Thayer Academy, which is located in Braintree, and Milton Academy, which is located in Milton. Okay, so the thing about these two schools, one, they're very local to where I live, and so I've had a ton of friends and family go here. My niece just started at Milton Academy as her freshman year. She lives in Milton and she has a real strong academic and a strong sports connection. So she really chose Milton for both of those things. She knew that it was really important for her to play on a top level lacrosse team while also getting her best education. The thing about Milton Academy is it's a day school and a boarding school at any given time when you drive through the campus, which is just the most beautiful campus you've ever seen. When you drive through on a weekend, it's still really active because there's people that live there all year long. When I lived in Cohasset, a lot of people in Cohasset, whether it was a family connection or a friend connection, but a lot of people were drawn to Thayer Academy, which is in Braintree. Although it was like a 30 or 35 minute drive because there wasn't really access to public transportation, what I found was that a lot of families just paired up and they did a carpooling situation amongst families. Again, don't let the commute fool you. There are ways to send your kids to any of these schools if they really want to go or if you really want to send them. Another private school that comes to mind is Tabor Academy. Now, Tabor's located in Marion, which is pretty far south of Boston. But again, this is one of those day schools and boarding schools, and it really focuses on marine sciences and a nautical lifestyle because it's right on the water. So I've found that a bunch of friends and family end up sending their children there to just learn about that completely different, or I should say, to have a completely different high school experience. I believe half of one of the years is actually spent at sea. And the last school that comes to mind is Dexter Southfield. Now, this one is a little bit west of Boston. It's not necessarily south, but it really is still a very popular school for people who live on the South Shore to send their kids to. There's just something about the beauty and the nature of where it's located in Brookline, their commitment to academics, basically to the college process. And whether you like New England or not, whether you're a fan of the Patriots or not, there was a big push over the past 10 years to send your kids to Dexter Southfield because Tom Brady's kids went there. And so if you were lucky enough for one of your kids to end up in his kids' class, well, let's just say you had a little bit of access to some glorious times in New England. I know I didn't mention each school's notable alumni, but every single school that I've mentioned has notable alumni, whether it was the private Catholic school and it was somebody that went there in the 60s and now is, has been the governor of Massachusetts, or if we're talking about where John F. Kennedy went to school, which was Dexter Southfield as well. And I think Michael Bloomberg went there. There's just notables at all these schools. So if you're really thinking about one of these schools and the alumni factor matters, do a little bit of research. I'm sure you'll find what you're looking for. Now, the other big consideration is going to be the location of the school. Now, for some of you, the school might matter more than the location, but for others who need to really consider what location they choose for their kids based on where they work or where they live, it's going to be important to understand where each of these private schools is located. Now, if you just look at this screenshot of private high schools south of Boston, you can see that the map is filled with options. Now, if you zoom out further and further, you'll see that there are more options in every direction. So most of this is going to have to be your own personal research and what you need for each of your students. But I think it will be helpful for you to hear about our family's experience. A little over 10 years ago, we were living in Cohasset, Massachusetts, and our oldest son was deciding to go to BC High for 7th grade. Meanwhile, our second and third sons were still going to school locally in Cohasset. So if you look on a map, Cohasset to Boston College High School is actually about an hour drive. But the way we were able to make this work was we were able to send our oldest to BC High by train. The MBTA system in Boston is actually a very well-established train system. It's not like some train systems in other other cities where you wouldn't want to put your young child on a train. So basically, the way this train worked was it was a scheduled time. So if he had to be to school by 7:30, we knew that he had to take the early train, the 5:45 train. So I would drive him over and drop him off at the train station. And when I did this, there were dozens and dozens of other kids his age, all in uniform, all getting on the same train, all going to the same place. It made it really feel like a safe experience for us. And like I've said earlier, while we were living in Cohasset and we wanted to send him to BC High, we were not limited to the commute or the transportation situations. There were plenty. And what we also learned, and I think I mentioned this before, was at that time, a lot of kids choose to go to private school over public school at that point in 7th or 8th grade. And what I learned was a lot of families were trying to figure out the same thing we were doing. Loved our community of Cohasset, but wasn't always that easy to get your kids to the school. So we teamed up. A lot of people carpooled. A lot of people did public transportation. And in the end, it all worked out. And if you need help with a specific commuting situation, or you want to get plugged into a specific community, please just reach out and I'd be happy to talk you through the different options. Fast forward to present day, both of our older sons have already graduated from BC High and are both in college now. And now our youngest goes to BC High. And that experience is a little bit different. I'm only about 30 minutes in the morning drive for him to get to school. And since he's my youngest and that's all I have at home, it really is important for me just to drive him. There are plenty of other options for commuters, but in my case, I just really like to jump in the car and drive him into school. So if you're thinking about moving to the South Shore of Boston and specifically trying to figure out private school, public schools, give me a call. I'd love to help you in any way I can. I hope this video was helpful for you. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next video.